Okay, so we're going live again. Gonna try this. It's been playing up, but hopefully now it will work. We're gonna chat with Josh from TVSEXDEATH. Um, Hopefully any moment. Send us a request and I'll dump you in. Hi, Half Indie. Hi, Grizzle Fizzle. Um, Something that wasn't doing before. Oh, yeah, we got there.
Oh, finally. What's up?
How you doing? Well, I mean, I always, I get kind of impatient with these things, and then
Yeah.
I realize that I'm from a time where, like, this is absolutely, totally unfathomable as far as technology goes. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
space age,
exactly.
like total Jetsons kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, in a way,
Yeah.
like, on the one hand, I'm like, stupid thing doesn't work, and then on the other hand, I'm like, I can't believe that we even have this technology that we can do this. So it's a bit of both, isn't it? Try to see the
Yeah.
positive side. But how are you doing anyway?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Cool.
Today's good.
How was
Yeah,
how was practice yesterday?
it was really solid. It's a shame, like I went back and looked at the IG, I guess whatever it was that we did yesterday, and it was hilarious. It sounded like listening to it in a tin can.
Yeah, it was like listening to a drummer in a tin can with like a slight hint of like what might be outside of if he was wearing like ear defenders, what might be outside of that. Do you know what I mean? Or something. It was like real kind of
It was like the snare sounded like it was a kid's
yeah,
snare or
yeah,
something. I was like, what
wasn't it?
happened?
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like sampling it, being honest. It was quite like, do you know what I mean? It'd make quite a cool, weird little intro sample or something. Yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, but at least we could
different.
see he knew all the bits. Do you know what I mean? You could tell that he knew all the parts, so that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so cool. And obviously the album is out everywhere finally now. Like no one has any excuse to not be listening to it. Um, yeah, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I guess the only excuse would be if you hate rock music.
Yeah, and even then, like, try out some. You might find like the exception to the rule. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there's always the odd country song that gets me, and I'm like, I don't really like country music, but this is a great song. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I feel
yeah,
that.
so yeah. So let's go. Let's do a bit of a track by track through the album.
Sure.
You don't have to be because it's a bit boring. Maybe going like, oh, this one's about this one's about this, like for like every single song. So instead, let's spice it up and have like you can choose like either like what the meaning of the song or the lyrics or whatever is, or what you were trying to go for with the music, or alternatively just if there's something funny that you remember about or some factoid that you remember about the
Yeah,
recording process of that song, just give us like something about each song basically, and hang on, I'll get my copy out so I can go through in order. Right, okay. And yeah, for anybody watching, you can get this on CD or cassette if you're in the States from TVSEXDEATH Bandcamp. And if you want the cassette in the UK, then you can get that from the Quickfix Bandcamp. But you can go and stream it. But being honest, I like the cassette. Like, it sounds really warm and fat. Like it sounds like music like this was supposed to be on tape, if you know what I mean. Like I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
if you can on your next recordings, you should just get really tight live and then just do it straight to tape and then put it out on tape and keep it like this kind of, like tape, that's all we do, tape level. You need to go and chat with Third Man and get in with that lot. They're all about their old school analog
It's true.
recording and yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
and Third
it's
Man, you need to get in touch with
$35
TVSEXDEATH. But yeah, okay, so we'll kick off with Happy That Way, which is the instrumental guitar intro.
Yeah, so not a lot to say about that except for it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, and I just had like a lot of anxiety that day and hadn't been like out of the house in a few weeks. I had some cat and all of a sudden it was a boom, we're together in the studio and doing stuff, and I was like, man, I haven't been in this setting in forever. And so the guys all walked out and we were all set to go, and I was like, can you just hit record? So he just hit record and I just made a shit ton of noise. I just went with it and I was feeling it and I got myself into it. So
yeah, to kind of introduce the zone or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, that's just kind of where my head was at, I guess. So I just went with that, and there was originally more to it than that. Like,
sure.
I don't know, at some point, like there was some screaming, something.
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was. It was all kinds of stuff, but barely any of it.
Almost 2 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but I think it works. It works well as it is, and that bleeds really nicely into the opening notes or the opening kind of squalls of distortion and stuff that of Missy Hagen Hates You. So
Yeah.
tell us something about that song.
So you'll notice like a general theme as I'm going through and kind of describing, I guess the rundown for these things is there's not a specific or even particular meaning behind everything. It's more about like the general flow of things that were kind of going on in my life, but not me directly speaking on them. So there's actually multiple topics embedded in each thing. It's just kind of like a little bit of each thing or whatever I was thinking of. So it's really just like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of a train of thought than anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess the general thing with Missy Hagen was I had seen some comedian, and her actual name was Sophie Hagen, and I'd seen like one of her bits, and I kind of wrote it based on that. And if you listen to the lyrics, you can tell like her material is just kind of geared towards a certain audience, and I just thought it was more of a sarcastic take on her comedy.
Right. Yeah, sure. Well, one day maybe she'll hear it.
Yeah, maybe. Here's hoping.
So then next up, Silver Screen.
So Silver Screen, there's a little bit more of this particular in it, but basically it's just kind of like, I guess everybody's starting to kind of realize like news media, no matter like where you kind of get your sources from, it's a lot of it's really contrived, and it's both sides kind of, or at least here in the States, it's very like everyone's pitted against each other, and everyone thinks they have the
that
right
way
version
here
of
as well. I'm pretty sure it's that way everywhere. Probably that's the keep them separated, divide and conquer, etc.
Yeah. To quote Crass, I love Crass. Punk was once an answer to years of crap, a way of saying no when we'd always said yep. But the moment we saw a way to be free, they'd have created a dividing line, street credibility.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So like that one's generally that. It's also a little bit of kind of like touching on the surrealness of just the things that were going on at the time in the world, and we're all just kind of like, what do you believe? And then it also touches on like the opioid epidemic, as you can hear like the lyrics at the end where it's like, I won't do your drugs, and then all you're complaining, it's really draining me, because like hearing the news constantly is absolutely a huge. You've got to tune that shit out at some point and just kind of go up and go do something.
Interesting, isn't it? Because also, I mean, apart from like just I mean, there's I find the idea of watching a news channel constantly, like that would be like torture to me, basically. Do you know what I mean? You might as well just stick me in a, in a fucking pit of fire and stick some spikes in me or something. Do you know what I mean? And then
so weird growing up, like growing up, nobody really wore all those, I guess political affiliations on their sleeve like they do now. So like, and meeting someone new, it's kind of like you don't just meet them, you meet everything they believe in at the same time. It's like, whoa, dude,
Which is also kind of in denial of the fact that as a species, we gain knowledge and perspective as we grow older. And so what you are at any 10-year juncture or 5-year juncture can be very different to what you are if you look at another 10-year juncture. Certainly 10 years, maybe not so much 5 years, but over 10 years you can change a lot of views, you can change a lot of perspectives, you can have a lot of things happen to yourself in your life that change your opinions about things. You can end up meeting more people as a result of your network expanding or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And so I think like it's quite everybody's quite obsessed with labeling, really, and it comes before.
So bad.
Well, it's almost like it works really well for like marketing, but it's not really the most human of things, I don't think, to kind of say, like it's great if you want to nail like, oh, I want to send this person, I want to find all the people who, who are gay, who like Jack Sparrow, who are kind of goths, or do you know what I mean? Then you've got like all these, that's brilliant for a computer to like find the customer and aim the stuff at them. But when it comes to a human, you can be a bit like, well, yeah, I was all about this stuff, like 10 years ago, but actually, I'm a bit more this way, this now, or whatever, especially, when you're in your younger years, it's supposed to be about exploring and working out, like trying out so much different stuff that then you land in a place where you've, from experience, not just from being told a certain view or feeling like you might be uncool if you didn't have that view. Do you know what I mean? Because it's the commonly held view. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting thing. I don't want to turn this into a soapbox for that, but if I didn't already, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely the news is horror. And also with social media, just like really quickly, like back in the old days,
it's the same idea.
Back in the old days, you'd be like, I'm gonna watch the news now, so something in you mentally prepares you for the horrors that you're about to see. Whereas with social media, you go, I'm gonna sit down on my 10-minute break and have a sandwich, and I'll have a quick scroll through social media, and you're bombarded with things that you weren't mentally, your defenses weren't already up. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's we'll only know the full impact of all this stuff, in many, many years. We now know how much television rotted, people's brains.
Absolutely. How much worse social media and just general, having a phone all damn day really do for somebody? Probably a lot more.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll know in the when we're old men, then we'll actually know what it was all. No, if I'm not already old already, but yeah. So okay. So anyway, yeah. Let's keep it light, guys. So keep it. What's quite appropriately keep it. What's that about then? Or
so that's pretty straightforward.
Or just tell me something about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's okay. So when we first started the band, I had the riff to that for quite a few years, actually. So before we even started the band, I was working on that, and I just really liked the groove to it. And originally, it had like much more of a shoegazy kind of approach,
right? Yeah,
and there was a lot more like swirling noise and all kinds of stuff to it. It did eventually evolve into like a more traditional rock song, but I feel like that's kind of where the music was, and then it just kind of evolved into that once we got Craig on drums. And I feel like the general idea with the song was, as the name implies, keep it. It's just kind of like you can you can have these beliefs because I guess like the main thing was I grew up in a very Christian household, and I was always told, you know, if you don't do this, you're going to hell, or do that, you go to hell, and so it's just kind of like, you know what, fuck
Yeah,
that.
no, I know that. I've had a Catholic upbringing myself.
Yeah,
Guilt for
yeah. So
every pleasure
you
must
skip
bring you.
all the good stuff. It's funny, like I actually grew up and I had to like teach myself from like 3 or 4 different types of Bibles just to kind of reprogram like the childhood trauma of spiritual terrorism that was my upbringing in the Christian church. And being told something like that so much, I was like, oh, you know what? That doesn't even really exist. And I figured that out. And so, like with the lyrics and everything, it's just kind of like, it couples with like near-death experiences where 9 times out of 10, most people don't experience anything like hell. I mean, they have hellish experiences, but generally they're still very positive and transformative. So like, I don't believe like a benevolent, if it's a benevolent being, would send anyone to a place of eternal torment. I don't even think we can conceive of such a thing.
Right, yeah,
So it just doesn't make sense. And that whole song is just kind of like, fuck traditional views of
yeah.
hell. It's stupid.
There's a certain amount of fear of God that's like instilled, which seems
Yeah.
even for someone who believes in God would be like, why why is he like that though? Because you know he'd be like, I don't know, he'd be like more like Superman or something, right? He'd be like
Yeah.
cool and nice then, wouldn't he? Because he's like more evolved than everything. So he doesn't need like, oh, you didn't do the right things, you're getting punished now. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
seems like
Yeah. And
a
so
petty concern
we,
for being so omnipotent. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. And we live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is like in the heart of the Bible Belt of the
Mm,
South in
mm,
America. So,
sure.
it, you know, it wasn't just my church. It was like everyone that I knew growing up that would kind of reinforce those same ideas. Like, oh yeah, for sure. If you do that, you go to hell.
Right.
Or someone might casually be like, hey man, where you going? It's like, hell in a handbasket if I don't change my
Yeah.
ways. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
everyone was just so
Um,
ingrained with like, yep, go to hell.
yeah, half Indie
Like, what?
just said in the comments. Half Indie just said in the comments. Apart from saying that I'm old, which you can like do one, mate. Like I was. He said, or he'd be totally indifferent, which is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because obviously, you know, you see in like Watchmen the concept of like having that amount of godly power, you
Yeah.
actually become kind of devoid of like kind of really any human emotion about anything, and you see things from such a uh, far perspective that you're totally detached from it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, that's
That really
yeah,
couples with that too. So I mean, like what again? Like what benevolent God would really do something like that? Because they
mm,
won't really care about the level of human error that, oh, this human shit pisses me off. Like, well then why? What? Yeah,
yeah, and
it just
also
doesn't make sense.
it's really presumptuous and egotistical of man to assume that God's going to be looking at us in any more detail
Yeah,
than he is any of the other animals on the planet. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm
exactly.
sure he looks to ants a lot more and goes, ah, those guys are getting pretty busy. Good on you guys.
Yeah,
Constructive, you know, productive members of the planet. Well done. Do you know what I mean? I don't know much about ants, but they strike me as being, you know, they strike me as being all about the work. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
you know, yeah, okay. So we've talked longer about that song than the song actually goes on for. But yeah, so let's go on to Mania Shifter, which was a single.
Yeah, okay. So this one's also pretty straightforward, but there's, you know, like I said, with all of the songs, there's just kind of like a train of thought. There's a couple of different things. There's an overlying theme, I guess. Mania Shifter. So like, you know, hi, my name's Josh. I have bipolar disorder and a couple other mental illness issues, but like that kind of touches on it, like my changing um, thoughts and behaviors and things like that. And then there's also kind of a poke at um, I guess it's like it's a spiritual concept or whatever. So like the occult was something that my fiance was like super into, and it kind of drew a lot of negative energy to us. And so it was kind of talking a little bit about that, a little bit about like mental illness, having nightmares about these things, and then kind of like putting it in this strange light where like some of the lyrics refer to like being outside and just kind of being naked in the rain, and it's just something that like you do when you have no, I guess, boundaries with society.
Right.
So like you just
Yeah.
do shit. And I've found myself having done that like since I was a small child. So it's something that just kind of continues. And I mean, hopefully that's something people can resonate with. Oh yeah, I'm weird too.
Right.
You
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Wicked. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess with like those kind of influences going on when you have like, it's interesting because people who are on the spectrum are drawn to maybe because they have like boredom issues or something. They're kind of drawn to like a lot of different stuff, and they investigate like a lot of different stuff in their life, like maybe more than people who aren't on the spectrum, because they're like just hyperactive and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you got to be careful what you add with when speaking. I'm not speaking. You have one has to be careful what one chucks in the mix when you have those kind of conditions.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
like whether it be drugs or whether it be what's kind of spiritual influences, what kind of value systems you have. All those
Yeah,
things can really not help uh, something that's already needs it, as much going for it as possible, if you know what I mean. So yeah,
right.
interesting, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you think it's interesting that we don't really have? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak too soon, but I don't know of many examples of bands in the mainstream. But then beyond that, like bands or artists who are kind of talking about the world that like most of us are actually living in now, which is where there are things like well, just the issue, the variety of things that float around on your album, on my records, on all the records that are on the label and beyond, and that we see from like people in the underground. There's kind of, I feel like we're reporting on the real world where the mainstream has given up on that quite a long time ago.
Yeah, I would say that I can't remember his name right now. But he was, let's see, what was it? Um, Ronnie Radke. That's it. Ronnie Radke in Falling in Reverse probably has, I would think, the most in a rock band that's not exactly mainstream, but still doing really well.
Right.
Say on topics like that. I mean, I don't personally listen to Falling in Reverse, but I've
Sure.
heard some of the things that they've recently put out. And I mean, the guy's super talented, super phenomenal artist, and doing great things all the time, and is not afraid to say it. Like I can definitely, commend him, his vision and stuff like that for doing those kind of things and saying what's on his mind, whether people disagree with that or not. He is still talking about the
Yeah.
issues. So yeah,
Yeah,
I feel that.
it's weird that like, I mean, I think that you could even just like have to pick out the one. Maybe it
Yeah.
kind of says it all when you think of like, I was reading some old Kerangs. I've been having a bit of a tidy up recently, and so I've found all
Yeah.
these old Kerrang magazines, and they're wicked. They're like, there's like the lamest bands in there are still like pretty decent. Do you know what I mean? You're like, oh wow, that was the time when that band was actually quite big and stuff. I was looking in a Kerrang today where like like certain bands, at the period at where they are, like Pumpkins had released that Zero single, which
Yeah.
was all like like, which was unreleased tracks along with that, and it's reviewed as if it was like a new album, and like, so there's like that's how
Yeah.
crazy
That's
everybody
awesome.
was about them at the time. And feeder were like brand new, and yeah, just like it just seemed like there was just a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to be like misty-eyed nostalgic, but I just feel like people were like a bit more adept with talking about, like, I don't know, real issues and that back when we got into music.
Yeah.
Whereas now it seems either like super like hyper tokenized, like, oh, this thing because it's this, and it's like, look, I've got the sticker that goes with it, or it's like, or it's just kind of like, oh, what is this even about? I don't even know. Is it even about anything? Do you know what I mean? And is it about anything relevant? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to like go into individuals, but like I see like like a certain artist who's put out a record, and it's like kind of like all about like having such a great time and like a lavish, decadent kind of lifestyle or whatever, and it's like, who's doing that? What? Nobody I know's like in that. And then the name of the title, I can't really say it because you know, it'd be obvious who I'm talking about. But it's just so like, really, oh well, I'm glad it's been that for you, because it really isn't that for like most people I know. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, I guess they don't want us all thinking about it. But yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, okay, right. Anyway, sorry, this turned into let's have a soapbox rant, hasn't it? Obviously it's just the way, it's what your music brings out in me, obviously. So yeah, so another single then, Rag Queen.
Okay, so Rag Queen, I think I've touched on this in the past, but to basically simplify, summarize, it's dealing with a lot of the same issues I still deal with. Maybe some people can resonate, but it's just kind of like a long thing about codependency issues, and just literally, as the lyrics say, just bending over backwards. So just kind of putting yourself last and putting other people before you, and just kind of trying to make sure everyone else is okay before you're okay. And that's just something I've always done. And I've had to like relearn shit, but I mean, I still have a lot of those issues where maybe I'm not taking care of myself enough. So that is just, it's pretty much about that, and just doing things to where I was like unwell, sick, and just not taking care of me. And it just kind of, I guess it does touch more personally on some things. Now I'm, thinking about like the lyrics and kind of what they are about. And there's some shit that like I went through where I was with someone, I was having to like just bring them to a gas station or something at like 2 or something in the morning, just so they could pick up like cigarette butts to smoke cigarettes. And I was like, I'm not going to keep buying your cigarettes over and over, and you got to do something for yourself. So it was between, kind of like that stuff and watching them do those things. And it's like, man, watching someone just kind of fall apart on you and just be willing to go that far into it with them is not good. It sucks. It's not good. It doesn't feel good. And I did that for a long, long time. So yeah, that's pretty much what that's about.
You said before about like also about like kind. Sorry, that's my phone. About like poverty as like wearing poverty like it's a kind of like badge of honor kind of thing.
Yeah, that is something I remember saying, because it was something that I feel the person that I was doing these things for was just glamorizing this very like homeless life that they didn't have to live. Like, they had tons of resources, lots of options, things that like most people wouldn't have, that they would kill for. And this person instead, decided to throw all those things away and chose to live this way despite having all of those things and all of that support. Yeah. And it's just kind of like, wow, you're going to go this far, like I said, this far into the hole, and it's just kind of where you want to be. It's where your vibration is. It's where your state of mind is. People often kind of these days that hell is the state of mind. It really is. Yeah, and that person
actualizing, like manifestation kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. and having to see that was just, it's fucked up on both sides.
Yeah, sure, I can believe it. Do you feel happy that you have this this outlet to put all this stuff in? Do you know what I mean? Like, what would you do with all these feelings and thoughts and everything without, like that guitar and the ability to, scream and moan a bit?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the way that I do these things, I feel like plenty of musicians can relate to that. Just being like, man, if I didn't have this, it's no joke that where would I be? I'd probably be dead.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, okay, guess what? We're almost at the end of side one. So yeah, the song that started it all, Sunslut.
Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite songs to play, just because it's such a fun, noisy, and catchy kind of song at the same time. But basically, it was in the height of COVID, and like the actual video that I shot for it was all during COVID. So if you ever watch that video, you'll notice like there's hardly any people at all. You can see and feel the isolation. You can feel kind of like the drabness of it all, just the very emptiness of everything, and it just was very surreal at the time.
Yeah.
But
I hate to say, but I really liked it. I really liked it. It was the only time I could stand being on this planet, really. Like when you go out and there's not so many people about, and there's not, yeah, I don't know, and everybody, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, like
reminded me
like oh, I'm frozen.
It reminded me of the film. I think it was The Happening. So like back from just the people in general.
Right.
And I mean, it's not exactly the same, but again, if you watch the video, like there's other stuff where you might see just little minor things, like there's a shopping cart at some point that's kind of like it vibrates or shakes or something like that, and it's actually putting emphasis on how careless and inconsiderate people can be for others. So a lot of this was part of, I guess, the overall theme was that there's just a general lack of kindness in people or just consideration for others. And I saw that a lot, especially during those times. And I mean, it's not like it wasn't any more prevalent than it had been before. I think it had just drawn an awareness to it. And
I feel like people have, through their isolation, they've come out of it a lot less, like considerate of people, like just in a very basic way. If people are walking, they just don't expect that, other people aren't going to move or whatever. Do you know what I mean? There's no, like, there's no kind of, they're not really here to, it feels like they're not here to coexist anymore. They're just existing themselves, if you know what I mean, which is like after, maybe that much time, just their focus being just them and their family or their immediate surroundings or whatever, then I think people have come out of it like that. I mean, there's, I wonder what the psychological impact of, being locked in a box for, best.
It wasn't just that. It wasn't just that. There were also some other things like as the actual name, the title of the song, what Sunslut actually is a lot also about pagan sun worship. And you'll see like there's in the video it does constantly have the sun showing, and it's because these old secret societies would like worship the sun in so many different ways, and I think we still do in a lot of ways. But so it was about that. It was also about and again, most of these themes I think are really explained by the video if you watch the video.
Sure.
I just put a lot of this stuff in there. Some stuff was just kind of like really quick, and it may not be something most people would get right away, but it's there. Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there. So it was, it touched on like the population control issue, something that I feel, you know, some people are like really all for it, and I'm not one of those, but yeah, I kind of threw that in there. There's some other stuff like spirituality in general, especially during COVID. I feel like a lot of people tried to like reconnect with whatever it was their, you know, quote unquote higher power might be. Some 12-step meetings talking.
Yeah.
And how personally I just felt like, you know, anytime I tried things like that, I've never felt like I really connected with anything. So like some of the lyrics are actually talking about not really having any reception to that. So like even though I've tried so many different things spiritually, and I've done the things, you know, a lot of kids like us might have done, where you like kind of like go to cemeteries and knock on mausoleums and try to like conjure spirits and shit like that, just to get a rise out of something, just to show like there's something elsewhere. It's not just all this, and just nothing at all. I mean, I'm not an atheist or anything like that. I think there's something, but it was kind of like my constant trying to get my foot in the door, just like, hey, something's out there. Something just has to like respond back. And I've always heard people with like clarity, or not clarity, but like clairvoyance and clairaudience and stuff like that. These weird spiritual gifts. I am not one of them. So I've never had those kinds of experiences, and I've always been fascinated with them. So it's just kind of me being like, fuck, man, how come they don't talk to me though?
yeah, right. That's a weird thing, isn't it? Like, but I mean, you know, maybe certain people are more receptive and other people aren't, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I did sound for a Medium event once. Like, so I just, you know, put people's mics up and down basically and stuff like that. But and there was some stuff that I couldn't really explain. Like I like to think I'm quite good at, like, you know, spotting the con or whatever, if you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And there was some bits that I couldn't really. I was like, shit, I don't know how the hell he knew that. Do you know what I mean, kind of thing, and stuff like that. So
Exactly.
You know, so and you know, knowing that and people weren't plants, and you know what I mean, and like seeing everybody come in and all that kind of business, because obviously, you know, part of you's almost like just looking for the I want to see like behind the wizard's curtain. Do you know what I mean? But like I want to see it for a trick, or I want to see something that I genuinely can't explain. So, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not particularly a pagan, but I could probably sign up just based on my pure love of the sun. Like, I think I'd get in just on that alone. But I think it's also for not seeing it for most of the year, and then it finally shows up, and it's like, wow, I go mental. So,
and to actually expound on that, I guess it's like it's something that's like the title of the song is as esoteric as it is also just kind of in your face. So there's some parts of it that's also just full on just about sex and, you know, springtime and fertility, which kind of like reverses and touches more on that whole pagan thing in general. So it's like fertility and sexuality and these things just kind of happening during those periods, like through the cycles of nature, and we do that too. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it touches on that and just sensuality and being in the physical, as dense as that is.
yeah. Cool. There's nothing dense about it. So we go like, and now we're on side B, and so then we got Spirit Pump is how it kicks off. What have you got to say about that?
Spirit Pump was really, it was really like my take at trying to blend the ideas of like older Sonic into something that could also be kind of, I guess, more gritty, raunchy, and I kind of went the same way with like vocals and stuff like that. But I would say it's mostly about suicide.
Right.
So it's just touching on mental illness. It's about suicide because it touches on kind of the issues and the pain that people experience, and how even the lyrics that I have in there is just kind of like the pain basically is not how other people perceive it. It's not how they say that it is. So it's just like, I want to feel that pain, because like everyone's pain is different, and as we all go through different things, we all kind of end up in the same place, especially if it's like something really dark. We end up experiencing it different, but end up in that same place. So it's kind of like that. And it's also a resistance to it, because like it feels kind of crushing at times for me to deal with that. So it's kind of, in one way, it's like I'm exploring in lyrics kind of the actual chamber of a weapon, and kind of talking about I'm not gonna just call it quits, and it's gonna take more than that. So like that's pretty straightforward. And then it just kind of touches on some other stuff that are loosely based issues related to those things that are like more personal that I've dealt with, that kind of led into that space for me mentally.
Yeah.
And then it also gets into it's kind of like an absence of mind at some point, especially with like the little I like to call it more of an anti-solo at that point, and that's really like where, for me mentally, like things are just kind of breaking down, but it's kind of okay at the same time, and it just kind of, you don't wish the river upstream, so you just kind of go with it at that point. It's like crossing the horizon or the event horizon of a black hole. You're just gone at that point. So that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah, I think it's interesting and overlooked, like kind of fact about suicide, that like though it's treated like it's this one time, and actually obviously sometimes it's just like a random thing where someone's killed themselves, but often it's actually that's the time that they actually ended up doing it. But you don't know about like the millions of times that they like got so close, or mentally were thinking about it, or do you know what I mean? Like that's actually just the time that they ended up finally doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's often whenever things are reported, it's always like, oh, like as if it was just that was they got depressed this one time and that was too much for them and that's why they did it. Whereas I think it's a much more realistic thing to say, oh, that was the time that they weren't quite strong enough to fight. Do you know what I mean? To fight it back or whatever. So yeah,
you're hitting the nail on the head with what that song is about. I mean, it's just everything that I think that encompasses really everything that I was feeling in that song. So like, as bouncy and fun as it is, it's also kind of like a sarcastic approach to my own depression and other people's too. So it's just really like, I feel this way and I know other people feel this way. And so it's kind of reaching towards those people and being like, your pain, it's not what people say. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, cool, man. So, hey, take care, Half Indie, and hope you're well, and hope you, I don't know if anyway, explosions. So this is going to be a bit lighter because you didn't even write it. So
right, yeah. This was just a lot of fun for me to do. I'm a huge DEVO fan, so this was something that I felt like the song Explosions was really, really underrated and really overlooked, especially since when DEVO actually did the album. Oh no, it's DEVO, and they went on tour and did the 3 DEVO tour. All their equipment that they had purchased to do like these synchronized kinds of light show type entertainment to go along with their performance just did not pan out, and it ended up in a really bad like latency that kind of just made it too difficult to keep using for the purpose of the songs that they were using them for. And so a lot of people that were tuning in through like college stations and stuff like that, they really didn't get to appreciate it because they weren't using it. You know, they weren't even able to do that for a long period of time. So that meant, like, as far as I can tell, there's only like 2 maybe live performances that you can find of that actual concert. Maybe online, maybe it's somewhere else, but I haven't seen it. And I thought just in these small performances of those that they'd had, that they were really intense, and it was just such an amazing performance to see. And that song just didn't really get a lot of play, and I felt like it was just a really powerful song to me. Like everything that we're talking about in it too is something that I really feel I still relate to. You know, just like you know, towards the end, you know, Mark is saying, you know, we like ideas. We thought you understood. You know, we like to go to. We take planes to, you know, places. Basically, like enjoying things that you can enjoy until they're overrun. You know, like going to new places. Like doing, you know, music when it accomplishes something. You know, those kinds of things. I totally relate to this, and I feel like it was more of a tribute, I guess, and just kind of putting it in a very noisy rock kind of way. And I felt like it translated pretty well.
No, yeah, I think it's great. It's like I prefer your version to theirs, being honest. So, you know, that's that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great when you find like one of those songs that you're like, oh, like I've got to do this before someone else like finds that, you know, there's this, and do you know what I mean? I'd like and that's definitely one. And I always wanted Smilex to cover "We Are All Prostitutes" by what's the name, by pop group, and I always thought, oh, that's a song that so should be done. And then I found out actually recently that Adamski, who I do some stuff with, he did a cover of it. So yeah, so great minds obviously think alike. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, so no, I think it's a really good choice, and it's yeah, I mean, I think it's close enough. Sorry, it's far away enough from the original to kind of have its own kind of like life and existence, quite aside from like the original song, which I think is, you know, kind of like some of the strongest covers do, really. Yeah, wicked. So then we're straight on to Paper Hearts.
I hate this song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's I guess it was something I always wanted to use as a heavier song, and it was actually originally written with me and my fiance like back in 2014, 2015, and it was more of an acoustic thing that we did with a little project that I'd called Strawberry Hemlock, and I just kind of took that and brought it over since I'd already had, you know, all the ownership of things. So I just kind of did that, and I just repurposed it and made it heavier. And it's just it's your classic love song that is a tragedy, you know, 2 people just kind of not working out, but also just something that I guess it's a little more intimate. You know, it goes into the whole, like, you know, I'll come out and see you when the sky is black kind of thing. It's just like, well, you know, nobody wants us to be together, but we're obviously making this happen anyway, and it's not good. But
yeah.
So that's generally it.
Yeah, there's a bit of Doom. There's a bit of a theme running through our roster at the
Yeah.
moment. I think with kind of doomed romances at the moment. So so the less said about that, the better. And good luck to those that are still hanging on to theirs.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
just the
gotta
human
kind of go
condition.
check with the other bands. Like, you're still all right, aren't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a bit of that going on. So, yeah, cool. I mean, did you find it like, did the band kind of go, yeah, oh great, like just treat it like another song that you're bringing to them fresh? So did that kind of freshen it up for you a bit?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, yeah. So when we did that, I didn't even explain that until like much later.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, we all just jammed on it, and it ended up that way. I was like, hey, I've got a song. It's pretty much done. Let's just run through the parts. And, Craig added his parts and Brett added new parts. And just to hear it all really fully fledged and not just a acoustic guitar and two people singing, it was a lot different.
Of course.
Sometimes big songs can be stripped down and sound really good when they're very minimal. But at the same time, the reverse is also true.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The not that I always love to bring up Nirvana, but I will. And the Mark Goodyear session version of Something in the Way,
Okay.
which is like really heavy, is like, of course, the original's like absolutely amazing and a classic and, all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? But that version where they're just like really just making like a lot of noise with it, like it's really good and it works. It's just as effective, if not, I don't know about more, but yeah, but yeah, that's like definitely, cool, wicked. And then so we're on to Pale Inhaler. We're almost done now. Penultimate.
Yeah. So it's let's see, Pale Inhaler is another one that touches on like such a deep fascination of mine, and that is the afterlife, near-death experiences, but also it kind of marries like the Tibetan Book of the Dead and Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Kind of touches on those things just a little bit,
right? Yeah.
And it also talks about it has like more of a fictional take on losing someone and what that's like for people to do and go through, and then to also kind of understand, like, I guess in that sense of like whether it be shared death experiences or deathbed visions, things like that. When someone passes over, sometimes people can end up with like dreams and stuff like that. And my mother was one of them, where our great grandfather passed away, and she, for a while there was nothing, but then all of a sudden she just started having all these strange visions, and I wouldn't call them nightmares, but they definitely caused stress for her. Just seeing her grandfather over and over in dreams, and it would be like the same kind of dream every time, where he's just kind of like on the porch, and he's getting her to like come up the stairs on the porch, and he looks a certain way every time, and eventually like she had to tell him to stop coming in her dreams.
Really?
And that stopped. That stopped so suddenly. So it's just kind of like, oh wow, And there was a lot of synchronicity between my grandmother at the time, so like her father, and for me, it's just like such a fascinating thing to see people go through. So, the lyrics kind of touch on those things as well, where it's just kind of like leaving your ghost behind with someone, like a loved one or something like that. You can really feel that, especially if you were really close to that person. You feel like they're still there. And then, they're not, but it's something your brain doesn't wrap itself around very quickly. A lot of necessary therapy.
Yeah.
But then when we look at it from the other side of things, it's like, I've heard so many near-death experiences where when these things happen, typically like everyone's totally okay. There's so much detachment from everything. So like the song itself is more about from a seeing your own mortality perspective, and kind of like how that dread ends up to this actually really beautiful thing. And I guess it's something that I took from this this band, Circle Takes the Square, which had always been like a huge influence of mine. They were always really dark, very earthy. I would say very spiritual, and they touched on some stuff in a song with some lyrics like "There's so much hope buried underneath tragedy. It's the same shade as concrete," and it's pretty much how I like viewed this song. Was like, yeah, it's about death. Oh, it seems really dark, and it's going to, you know, appear and sound very dark, but actually, it's still a beautiful thing to me. So
Right. Yeah.
that's essentially it.
Yeah. Oh, I was just yeah. Bye, Brian. By the way, I was wearing your T-shirt all through this interview. This is Deviation Street, which is a magazine that was going in Bath, and this picture is of Iggy Pop, which Brian, who was in the chat, took. He took that photo back in the days when Iggy Pop played in it was Bath or Bristol, I can't remember, but
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So
I love that shirt.
yeah, so yeah, but yeah, I've been wearing it for days actually. But yeah, it's been sunny, so I haven't really been wearing much. I've been putting it on and then just taking it off, so I didn't really feel like chucking it in the dirty clothes after like you've like worn it for what, like maybe a compound hour or something, like throughout the whole day. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, enough about my hygiene and its issues, but yeah, so okay. Yes, okay, we'll finish off the thing and then I'll just ask you a bit about the process. But Turn It Off is the final track on the album. You know, it's slowly becoming my favorite.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
It's
Yeah,
just got a
it's
it's
a
just got
favorite
a
of Brett's
different
too.
it's got different like menacing vibe to it that I really like.
Yeah,
It's all about that bass really, just kind of like, and it just kind of like keeps the edginess going, like, and then you know everything
exactly.
you guys do kind of just like expands it and then it shrinks back down and expands. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's slowly becoming, I don't know, they're all like, there's so many good ones, but yeah, I mean they're all good really, but like yeah, there's so many favorites. But yeah, if someone said which, you know, like I don't know, if they said 3 tracks off it, I think I'd recommend Missy, that, and oh, Tuffy. Well, probably Explosions actually, because it might hook them in quite easily. Yeah, but the what's the name? I had to fight to push out Mania Shifter and Keep It. I think Keep It's one of my favorites. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So tell us about Turn It Off.
So Turn It Off is really based on. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of like the Doors, but also really kind of like post-punk, you know, like goth rock kind of stuff, like Asylum Party, Sisters of Mercy, New Order, things like that. And I really loved those vibes that you can really only get in that kind of a song to me. And you know, some people may feel like it's very repetitious, but something about that is also very entrancing. So while true, it's also very good that it is. And I'm also just a massive fan of anything that starts out with bass.
Yeah,
So I had to make sure that this started that way, and I really wanted it to build up from there. And the whole connection with the Doors is like, there's, you know, that one song, The End.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
And when he's kind of going on the rant and talking about things that are kind of really bizarre.
Yeah.
I won't go into it, but if you know, you know.
All the Oedipal stuff, and yeah, and the what's the name? Killer walked down the hall. The killer woke before dawn. Walked down the
Exactly.
hall. He took a mask from the ancient gallery, and and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So any Doors fan will know it pretty well, I'm sure, and
Yeah.
anyone who's seen the Doors movie will remember uh, remember Val Kilmer doing it. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm a big Doors guy anyway. Like it was one of my teenage bands in
Hell
that
yeah.
I when I was living in South Africa, like a few of the cooler guys like the Doors, and then when I came to the UK, a few of the cooler guys like the Doors, and so we were kind of like, that was like one of the few bands I managed to carry over from my, because we didn't really have much new music in South Africa, so it was all album giants, the Bee Gees, and like good was Queen and U2 and the Police and Bob Marley, and yeah, I'm running out of it. And then bad, there was like all the Dire Straits, UB40, Phil Collins, Bee Gees, you know, and I'm talking You Win Again Bee Gees, do you know what I mean? Like really, really bad. Worse than even cheesy Bee Gees. But yeah, so when I came over, I couldn't really carry many of my bands over. And I even disowned like a few, do you know what I mean, in the process? Like Dire Straits, I'll never go back to. Do you know what I mean? There's some things you can't unlearn, and I can't unlearn that Dire Straits are a bit naff. But yeah, so yeah, but I can kind of get that. There's your drummer uses a lot of crazy metal cymbals, and on that one, they really they really work because it's kind of like it just builds the intensity like tons. Yeah, I should say your previous drummer, your drummer on this album. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
miss you, Craig. Love you, brother.
so yeah, well, yeah. So that's a good time to tell us a bit about the process. So how long were you together as a band before you went into the studio?
Oh, let's see. We actually got together, I want to say late 2018.
Yeah.
It's been a while. COVID really threw us off.
Yeah.
And I mean it really threw me off. I mean it was so hard getting back on. It's still been difficult picking up that pace again, what with everything else that started, you know, kind of getting traction. But anyway, probably late 2018. Like I said, we kind of started out more shoegazy, so it was just very like swirling noise kind of stuff. I didn't really have like a big idea of what we were doing yet, and we experimented with like a second guitar player. We also played in a place where we couldn't really do loud drums or anything like that, so we played with like an electric kit, and it was interesting. It worked out for what it was. Eventually, the second guitar player left, and then it was just me, Brett, and Craig. And then we got we had to like leave there because it was just too much noise. Because we practice at Brett's house, and it's, you know, just his garage with some sound blankets now. But at the time, we were just playing in his living room, and we didn't really have any other, I guess, means to do something else. And we got a lot of noise complaints, and
yeah, I bet.
Them playing like as low as like a jazz band or something, and it wasn't working out. So we found a storage unit. We went there, and that's where everything kind of picked up. Is we found a storage unit. We're able to be as loud as we wanted to be, and we just started writing. We just hit the ground running. So everything actually was finished. We finished everything from the first song that I had started with, which was "Keep It," and finished the entire album for the most part, like except for Turn It Off. Turn It Off was actually finished at the very, very end, and it was actually while we were in the studio that I wrote that song. So that was just one we kind of threw in there. There was a few more that we were choosing from, but
yeah,
that one was written at the last minute, and it just kind of came out. So it was like, this needs to be on there too. And yeah, so like we wrote everything in the span of probably a few months. So it's kind of really frustrating that it took such a short time to write everything.
Make it,
and we
a long time to
so
the final product. Well, you just
but a
turn
lot
around the next one real quick. You just
do
have
I?
to turn the next one really quick. Do you know what I mean? You just have to.
Yeah, and now there's like, God, there's so much material. It's hard to even pick from anything with what we're gonna do next. And
yeah,
it's wild how that happens. But you know, time goes, and if you're a musician, all of a sudden, as long as you don't quit, all of a sudden you just got way too much on the back burner, you know, way too much in the
Backlog
library.
material. Yeah, I know, it's awful, isn't it? I've got hundreds, literally hundreds of songs kicking about.
Yeah.
And so you went into the studio with a guy called Elliot
Yeah.
how do you say his
Elliot Virula.
Virula? Yeah. And what kind of stuff? Oh, he was a bit of a local name.
Yeah. He played in I want to say it's Night Talkers, and I think that was his side project. And I can't remember his main band actually. I have it on vinyl somewhere too. I've listened to it a few times. It's pretty good. It's just very pop punk. Pop punk was never really my thing, so I didn't get super into it. But super talented guy, like all around. He's, you know, guitar, also audio guy. Just does so many different things.
Okay.
And he really he helped us, you know, mix everything. And that was generally it. We played at.
How long did you take to record it?
I think it was just a couple days. I think it was just like 2 days.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty good work. I can see why I can see why it's like frustrating to you that it took this long to get it all out. At least it's all done now, and it's all like everything's like you're kind of like ground zero. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Half Indie's back, and he said too many lyrics too. He said I have loads of music, but meaningful lyrics are harder to produce. How do you find that ratio? Do you find you have more music than lyrics, or?
Personally, like lyrics come to me so much. See, I was a writer a long time ago, so like a lot of the stuff that would come to me would just nonstop. I mean, I changed over time from like the last band that I was in, which was like we were writing like novellas worth of lyrics per song, like which is very, very in-depth kind of stuff. But eventually toned down like the sophomoric tirades and kind of went the opposite direction and revisited just more of like primal, just raw feelings and emotion on things, and really not trying to get too in depth about how to really explain something or describe something. It was, mostly what I was doing. And I'm a huge nerd, so I used to role play a lot too. So it just came very naturally. And creative writing just tends to run in my family. And so I have shit tons more lyrics, and I wouldn't even call them lyrics as much as they start off as just free verse poetry and lot kind of things that I string together in probably much the same way Cobain did, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to take this part and this part since this works well with this part and that part. And honestly, like I kind of got that was something that didn't happen intentionally for him, but when I learned about his technique, like he had like no pride in how that came about, because he was like, there's nothing special about this, how it happened. And I can relate to that, but I kind of took that process and was like, oh, this actually works as a creative process.
I've done the the Bowie cutting up, when Bowie cuts up the lyrics, and I've done that quite a few times before, and it
really works out
stuff for me. And I mean, lately, being honest, I used to write lyrics all the time, and then somewhere along the line I started trying to teach myself music, because I was like a singer trying to play songs, and then trying to write songs, if you know what I mean, not knowing how to play instruments very well. So then in my path of trying to learn to make music, I've ended up then making far more music than lyrics. But I've got bags full, literally plastic bags full of lyrics sitting around that I need to sort through, and I've always on my phone got like tons and tons of lyrics. So it's not like I don't write, I just write way more music because I'm busy trying to learn how to do music well, if you know what I mean. So, whereas the lyrics are a bit easier to kind of like, because I suppose I was writing longer. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now I can knock out lyrics quite simply. And sometimes I'll just watch a movie. I've got so many films where I've got like a song that's basically, it's nothing. It's just words. It's just bits of dialogue that I really like from that movie, and I've just restructured them into a song, and it's been like, yeah, oh, brilliant, love it, sounds great. Do you know what I mean? Didn't have to write a single thing. I just like literally ordered it, which is, you know, I got one which is about American Psycho, and I just recently recorded one about Apocalypse Now, and did one about The Fountain, which is the Darren Aronofsky film as well. So yeah, so I've probably got more as well, but those are the three that leap out in my brain. But yeah, and it's literally just bits of dialogue and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And one was I remember when I wrote the Fountain one, I played Disgrace, and I was like, I was kind of like, oh, like she'll really get like how I've taken the amazing themes from this song and I've like crystallized them into this thing, which is kind of like more or less about myself or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like how I related to it. She just went, yep, that's what happened in the movie. Oh, okay, that's kind of wasted. But yeah. But yeah, so cool. And then anyway, so then we made friends online through Instagram. See, nice things happen online sometimes. And
Yeah, for sure.
And then I mastered it, which like basically just kind of just took off a couple of edges that you didn't want and brought out a couple of edges that you did want, if you know what I mean, I think. And
yeah,
and then we had the finished product, and you did all the artwork, of course.
Yeah, I did. I do a lot of digital art and photography, and just kind of blend those things. I'm like a huge fan of painting, but I can't paint, so a lot of the stuff that I do, I try to emulate what looks like paintings, and it's a mess, but it's fun.
That's really cool. If you think about, like, you know, a lot of like the coolest drum beat patterns are like people trying to emulate a real drummer's drum style or whatever, but on a machine, and it comes out with, you know, a whole new flavor, if you know what I mean. So I think it's it's called having respect for your elders, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, wicked. Yeah, and obviously you did all the artwork for the singles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. And you did recently the video for you. Obviously, you've made all your videos. Sunslut, Missy, and Explosions. Are they the only ones? Is there a Rag Queen?
I think so. Yeah.
Is there a Rag Queen video?
Nah, there's no Rag Queen video.
Yeah, okay. I get confused myself sometimes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. So and that's I assume you're going to move on with that kind of artistic kind of, you know, kind of overseeing kind of feel, and so it's always
So in regards to like moving forward, I really feel like we're dabbling a lot with more new wave 80s kind of vibe things, and still blending them with a lot of like harder rhythms and stuff like that, and really trying to blend those no wavy kind of no trend and sonic youth kind of noise and kind of punk vibes as well. But I really want more things that are leaning into the territory of like Sisters of Mercy and Asylum,
mm-hmm.
things like that. But there's actually one thing that I think is really funny for the album, and that is that everything that you hear me doing vocally, it was something that I, and maybe a lot of people would pick up on this, is that I've never been a singer. I've only ever screamed in bands, and like I can scream really, really well, I think. and singing is a whole other territory for me. So I was learning how to sing, or at least teaching myself how to sing through the process of writing the music. Yeah. And so what you're hearing is kind of like 3 months worth of me knowing how to sing, or at least trying to sing.
Sure.
And I honestly just kind of kept with some of what, like, Brett would be like, oh, okay, yeah, this sounds good. Maybe like we can make this more enunciated here. And I have more of an interest in kind of like slurring some of my words together, and it would be like, oh, well, let's open that up a little bit and get more. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So like some of the things are very intentional and some of them are not. Right. But it's a beautiful mess, I think. And now it's become more of like what I'm doing intentionally on top of what I've also kind of taught myself. Yeah. So it's a little better, but it's also similar. So for anyone that does hear anything going forward, it's going to be like, oh, this guy can't sing. Well, actually, now it's more intentional, which is the same thing for my playing. Don't like it, that's choice, intentional.
Yes. So you've got new inspirations. You've got a kind of a years of development, and you've got a new drummer, so therefore a new chemistry all to work with. So,
yeah, so a lot of noisy stuff that's going to happen, and I'm really trying to like get to that. And once we start playing more shows and kind of getting some of this out there, we've got so much new stuff that's going to be happening. Really excited about it, and moving forward, it's going to sound probably a lot different from the first stuff we did. I think even the production will be different.
Sure. Wicked. Awesome. Well, that's all very positive. I think that's also a sizable amount of content, I think, for our audience. What time is it now?
I have no idea.
We must have been going best part of an hour, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Past half 8. So, yeah, let's knock that on the head. Thank you to everybody who watched and anybody who's, catch it on the replay and everything. And yeah, cheers, Josh. That was good fun. Always nice.
Man. Thanks for having me.
I think thanks for coming and chatting with us. Yeah, and in case you forgot or didn't understand why we did all of this, It's All in Your Head is streaming now on all the platforms. If you want it on cassette, you can get that in the UK from Quickfix, or if you want it on cassette and CD, you can get that in the US or stateside from the band themselves. So, and if you want to book the band, get in touch with either anybody here, there, whatever. And yeah.
TVSEXDEATH at protonmail.com. Just send us any booking requests there. I handle it all.
Wicked. Awesome. Cool, man. And I'll catch you on the flip side.
All right, man. Take it easy, Lee.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Bye.